Please welcome Retool Head of Design, Paco Vinoly.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I am Paco Vinoly. I'm Head of Design. And today our talk is our agentic future. Sometimes it feels like these slides get outdated from one day to the next with all the announcements that we're getting on the field. But I'm excited to share with you how we think about agents and our agentic future in terms of Retool. So imagine a world where software anticipates your needs. It can make decisions and act on your behalf across every part of your business, every corner of the enterprise. It's not that hard to imagine that world, right? It's upon us. And it's made possible by these LLMs, the large language models. And you saw David talk about it, Abhishek. And it is a generational technological shift on the scale of the internet, the smartphone. So let's get into it. You've seen this slide, and I want to hammer this again. And I know you've heard it from Sean and Mads in the first session today, but it's important. And we're going to put this through the lens of agents in this session. Again, we've talked about these AI demos. And somebody was saying Sean was saying we can't use the magic word. And I'm like, dude, I have it on my slide. Don't say that in your session because it's not going to work for me. But they're incredible, right? And then you have production reality, which is so much more complicated and requires so many of those things that we talked about today to make them real. And that gap is something that we're going to talk again about during the session, again through the lens of agents. The other thing we're going to talk about is why the future of work isn't about AI replacing humans. The future is about humans and AI collaborating, working together. And it's important as we go through the different types of workflows and agents, how each, both humans and AI, plays roles that depend on each other. So I was going to go a little bit off script here, and I had a question for the audience. I can see some of you out there. And my question wasn't about how many of you have seen AI demos or been blown away by them, but has anyone in the audience built or tried to build an AI agent that didn't quite make it, that failed in some way? Any show of hands? Wait, did I see one in the middle? No? Oh, I got one here. Okay, here we go. Phil, do you want to come up and share what happened? Let's go. John, can I borrow a mic? Hey, everyone, welcome, Phil. He is not prepared for this.
I have not.
Come on in. So, you've built an AI agent.
Yes.
And you know my next slide is probably going to say how hard it is to bring these into production. What did you experience?
Yeah, I mean, basically, this was when I was learning Retool, and we built, as a class, our first AI agent. And I thought, oh, this is like super intuitive. Like, it's using common language. Like, I am not an engineer, for those who do not know. I thought, okay, this is something I could definitely like kind of try on my own and come up with one that I could then have my colleagues use and see all the great work that I did. And let's about the third prompt in, it just started really going like off chart and went really, really bad. It just kept processing and spiraling, and I had to stop it. I kept trying to do reprompts, and what I thought was really intuitive, like definitely shook my confidence.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm sure there's lots of stories like these. So thank you for sharing, Phil.
Yeah, you bet.
Sorry to put you on the spot and go off script. I'm going to hand this back to John. Thanks, John. Thanks, Phil. Again, I think there's a lot of you that might have that story to tell or may experience it in the near future. And that's the trick to some of this talk. And again, I think you also heard David talk about this. The reality is that 95% of AI pilots never make it to production. This is what the MIT researchers are calling the learning gap. And it's not a technology problem. It's not about the models and their capabilities. It's about how we design the systems and these workflows. Most organizations don't know how to fit AI into human workflows in a way that's safe, reliable, and ultimately valuable for the company. And that's the real challenge before us. In this talk, we're going to focus on how do we build systems where AI and people work together, not just coexist, but collaborate, amplify each other's strengths. Okay, so let me set a little bit of the context. What you can see in the slide here is a little bit about our tech stack. And you can see, and it's a little bit genericized, but hopefully you can see some of your technology here. What we're focusing on today is the automate layer, which traditionally has housed the workflows. And now we are adding agents to it. This is where most of the human-AI collaboration happens. But the work that happens in automate depends on everything below it as well. It's those foundational elements that Gabriela and Todd talked about. It's about governance. It's about connecting to the data layer. It's about deploying securely. And all of these things are the ones that are critical to ensuring the success of what's happening in automate. So I'm going to do a little bit of a more theoretical pass, and then Tom is going to come in and share how the product really comes to life. But what we're seeing in our customers and our power users is that they are evolving around across this maturity curve. On the left, we have these Gen AI workflows. They're relatively consistent in terms of the output you get. They're not very flexible, right? And they also can accept a ton of inputs, but they're pretty predictable and easy to work with. Probably most of you are working in this space already and have maybe for a few years. And then on the top right, you have these AI agents, fully autonomous. Much greater variety of inputs you can put into the system, but the consistency of the outputs can change dramatically, and they can be much more harder to work with. I want to make this a little bit more concrete and go through each one of these. And I'm doing this for the purpose of setting the stage, not only to what Tom is going to talk about, but to think about agents, AI, and human interaction, and the different versions of this that we have. So for Gen AI workflows, this is one of the most deterministic workflows and the most simple ones that we have. In this case, the human has defined every step of the workflow. And the LLM is in the middle, and it's adding this generative power. And we take an example here of a sales call. Sales call comes in, a transcript is created, and it goes into the LLM, which at this point, it can summarize, it can highlight objections, it can create action items, it can create a recap of the call, and then sends an email to the sales rep. The workflow is always the same, but the LLM can create different outputs to it. It's a powerful tool, but it doesn't have a ton of flexibility. So again, bottom left, Gen AI workflows, the simplest version that we have. And then we move a little bit further up, one step further. And these are agentic workflows. in this model, in this workflow, the model begins to make decisions that affect how the workflow runs. We take the previous example, right? We get the transcript that comes in, the LLM picks it up, and does the work of summarizing objections, action items, creating its email. But it has a point where it needs to make a decision now. It's not just generating output. It needs to decide, am I ready to insert data into the CRM? Am I ready to send this off to the sales rep? Or do I need more clarity and I have to reach out to a human for some help? Now, the LLM will make that decision depending on how it's thinking, and begins to chart the route through the workflow. The workflow is predefined. The human has set the steps, but now the LLM decides which path to take. Okay? So that's agentic workflows. And finally, we get to the AI agents, fully autonomous. And this is when we don't have the clarity between input and output. There's a lot of variability. In this case, the agent has the ability to check context, can decide, can choose to reason further, can choose to call tools, even a human if necessary. There are no fixed steps, and the path is charted differently each time. For example, here, it's hard to take the same example all the way through, but the input comes in. Let's say it's a call transcript, and the LLM is starting to do its thing. Now, it may say, I'm ready, I got everything I need, and output. Or it may say, well, you know what, I'm going to check the CRM. Or I need to do a web search to validate something that I heard in the transcript. And it can then generate loops that go back as many times as necessary to get to the point where it feels confident to end the workflow and move forward. So these are the three types of workflows that we're seeing. And they all leverage the LLM in different ways and in greater levels of complexity. But each one of these systems faces the same trade-off. Control versus delegation. How much control do we keep with the humans, and how much we choose to delegate to the LLM? And it's not a fixed or one-time decision. It's a dynamic boundary. And it shifts depending on context, on risk, on the capabilities of the LLM. But, OK, so I just wanted to set a little bit of the theoretical framework. But now I think it's important to see how the tool, how the product functions, and how our customers are implementing it in the real world. And for that, I'd like to bring Tom on stage to walk us through some of those examples. Tom?
Please welcome Retool Solutions Engineer, Tom Konewka.
Thank you, everyone. Feels like I have my own Netflix special here. Just maybe 1% of the Pyro budget. We really need a candle for our fireside chats next year. Anyways, agents. Why are we actually here? So what Paco was talking a little bit earlier was the theoretical application of these agents and why they're important. My part here is actually going to be the applied portion, seeing it in action in our product. Right? So stay with me here. You've made it. This is the last product content session, and I'm the last speaker. But the product is actually very, very important. So with agents, right? What does it actually take to win with agents? It's not just about the underlying LLM model. It's the system. It is the product. It's the platform. It's Retool. So building agents with Retool actually requires three main critical things. The first one is tools. You're going to learn that tools are effectively the lifeblood of agents. They're the mechanisms that can take action on your data and your systems. Tools are great, but if you let them loose, they need guardrails. That's the second point right there. Guardrails are important because of the power of these agents. They need to be constrained in a way that is safe, secure, governed, and auditable. And finally, the third point is the quirks. Quirks, what are they? I'm sure we've all tried to build something with an LLM, and we did not get the same outcomes every single time. These are the quirks, the edge cases. We need abilities and mechanisms to control for those quirks within a platform when building agents to give you the best shot of a deterministic outcome for what really is undeterministic software. But when these three align, agents stop being demos. They become dependable business partners. So let me show you the platform that brings these three pieces together. So we're going to start with the narrative here. Meet Pam. She's an account executive for a Fortune 500 company. She's talking to stakeholders, customers, prospects, internally, externally, all day, every day. She's very busy. She's got back-to-backs all day long. Now, she has an important meeting coming up with one Tim Cook. I wonder what he does. And she actually needs to prep. She needs to get a very informed and intentional meeting preparation document. She just doesn't have the time or the effort or the energy to do so. So enter Retool agents. So we're going to play this so you can see it in action. So Pam is actually using a meeting prep agent to prep for this upcoming meeting with Tim Cook. So the prompt has been sent. You can now see that the meeting prep agent is searching the web using the search web tool, right? And within the platform, you can actually see the thinking and the reasoning that's actually occurring for each successive step, each tool use. And that's important for us as operators to build trust within the system. We don't necessarily need to have all of this exposed, but as we're building, as we're really shifting our human psychology around the construct of agents, it's important to have this so we can actually build trust. So you can see we're using another tool to create a Google Doc, update a Google Doc, and then finally send email. So we've context switched maybe 3 or 4 times now. We've all been in the room, we've all been at home, we've all been at meetings where we're getting constant Slack pings, and context switching is productivity poison, right? Where us as humans, our performance heavily declines and degrades over time every time we need to context switch. But agents, they're built for it. So as you can see here, we actually got the digest at the end for the research being complete, and then the email is sent to Keenan, one of Pam's associates, for review. And that was just done within minutes, right? This could normally take hours, if not days, if you're factoring everything else that you have going on in your life. And yes, this is live in Retool today. So now that you've seen the system in action, let's actually go under the covers and dig into the mechanisms behind making it reliable. So over here, tools. Why are tools important? Tools, tools, tools. Conveniently, our company's name is Retool, but they're super important because this is what actually gives agents the power to reason and make change in your business. So you can see over here, there's a bunch of core tools. These are the out-of-the-box tools that we have available in the platform for you today. Things like send email, creating calendar events, creating docs, doing web searches, all the things that you would expect from an agent platform to help you with these business processes that you're trying to automate or trying to create for the very first time. Now, every business is unique. Every business is really undeterministic in nature, so we need to provide for a mechanism to actually account for that. So that's where you can actually create your own custom tools. What is a custom tool? Well, if you've used Retool workflows before, it provides you with a workflow-like canvas to design and iterate and provide your agent with a very specific job and function with that tool that is actually unique towards your business. Other things you can do, you can use other agents. You can import from an agent. You can even leverage the existing workflows that you've built in the Retool platform today. And now you can actually also connect to MCP servers. And then we're also working very heavily on A to A. So that is becoming a de facto standard just like MCP has. So in our previous example, our agent could search the web, do research, send an email, share the meeting prep doc with key attendees. Now, what sets this system apart from other AI architectures is that the LLM is deciding when to use each of these tools that the human has equipped it with. This separation of capabilities versus decisions is what sets it apart. So the result is there's fewer prompts into an LLM that you have to do. There's more autonomy that you're granting the agent, and you get consistent outcomes. All right. However, giving these agents capabilities through tools means you also need to take measures to prevent them from acting in an unauthorized and even malicious way. On the one hand, that means giving powerful, detailed observability like you see on screen over here. We have things like token usage and estimated costs. Great for those business line stakeholders to know how much are these transformations actually affecting my bottom line. The total runtime and total runs, performance. Other technology stakeholders to know how good is this agent, how quickly is it solving the problems, how many times does it need to run to solve that problem. You can see a graph here with all the different tool usage. So these things are coming out of the box. It's actually quite trivial to build an agent today without any sort of platform. There's a lot of tools out there, but actually putting into production in a secure, governed, and observable way is something that Retool is very, very unique at. So let's actually go to the next screen here to actually configure an actual agent. Now, LLMs, they're inherently non-deterministic systems. This means that you need a different set of controls compared to other software paradigms that have existed in the past. Oftentimes, that involves creating a detailed, specific prompt, like you can do today in Retool in the instructions panel there, where you actually guide on what this agent's role is. Selecting the model as well is important. With Retool, you can actually select any model that your organization has a key for. We can provide models for you, or you can bring your own. Next is temperature. Really kind of adjusting for the creativity of the agent itself. And you align that with the task that's actually at hand. So if there's let's say a financial analysis agent, you'd want the temperature to be basically 0, because you're dealing with numbers. If there is a marketing agent to create brand copy, you might want to slide a temperature up. Also, iterations. Controlling cost and performance is important. Sometimes, I know we've all been there, we've used an LLM, and then all of a sudden it's stuck in a loop, right? That loop does unfortunately cost money, so we want to limit the possibilities and limit how many times an agent tries to solve a problem. And that gives us actual good feedback to iterate and improve those agents. But what happens now when we take some actual unique steps when dealing with these LLMs by providing tools and providing documentation? How can we further build upon this? All right, this slide. What even is this slide? I'm like 2 feet away from it, and I can't even read the text. This is digital transformation. This is business process. This is all things that you've probably done in your organization over the last 5, 10 years. Different versions of this, different iterations of this, but it's all the same. It's a static process that you've all come up with, and this is the best way to implement it. At least over here with the Retool workflows, it's actually diagrammed, and you can follow along and make sense. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand here, but I know a lot of you have some version of this in your organization that's probably not even diagrammed. It just exists in the digital ether, right? And what happens when someone leaves your team, leaves your organization, someone new comes, right? Your business is changed. Your business changes by really the month and the year. It's very difficult to have an actual 5 to 10 year business plan at the rate of things are improving and changing every single day. So now, what if we could refactor this? What if we could actually change this, how we actually approach solving a business process? Enter an agent. So that previous workflow was a security inbox triage workflow, where there's different branches based on if it's an email asking for this, if it's an email asking for that, right? Whether we know the organization or not. Now, instead, we can refactor this whole thing and put it into just simple 3 blocks. A starting point, the invocation of the agent, and a response, right? Much simpler than, I'll just go back for a second, much simpler than this. So I actually want to do a thought exercise with you right now. Let's actually travel back in time, circa 2022. LLMs are now starting to take main stage here, right? Now, I want you, imagine I came up to you in 2022, even early 2023, and asked you, what if we could actually give you this agent, and it can solve your problem for you 50% of the time, roughly the capability around that time frame. So if you are willing and able to, please lift your hand if you would not trust that agent around that time. Everyone's hand should be lifted up. And keep it up. Please keep it up. All right, good. Getting audience participation is always fun. Now, let's fast forward a couple years, 2024, 2025, in this timeline, in this multiverse. Reasoning has kind of come out. And now I told you that this agent can solve your problem 90% of the time. I'll even give you 95. Who would still not trust this agent? Okay, some hands going down, some hands remaining up. This is good. This is like the prototyping POC phase of the wonderful world of agents. This year, past year, and next year. Now, if you listened to Clee's talk, the fireside chat with Elizabeth Ray earlier, you know he's all bought in on agents. You saw Berger's presentation with Uber as well. Now let's fast forward 3 years, 4 years. What if I told you that this agent is accurate 99.9999% of the time? Who would trust it then? Okay, everyone's raising their hand up, great. Or I guess I should have said, who would not trust it then? Everyone raise their hand down. All right, so we have something where in 3 years' time, basically for every 1 million interactions that you're going to have with an agent, every 1 million customer support tickets, every 1 million calls, every 1 million legal requests, there will only be one error that actually requires human review. So now you have to ask yourself, 3 years is a short amount of time. I'll even give you 5 years, to the end of the decade. You're probably still going to be at the same companies. Maybe you'll join a new company in a year or two where you'll actually be tasked with figuring this out. So now you have to ask yourself, what is the actual shelf life of your business processes today? If in the next 3 to 5 years, you'll have an agent that can do it quicker, cheaper, more accurately, 99.99999% of the time. It really becomes the march of nines, right? For certain businesses, maybe 2 or 3 nines is sufficient. But then the march of nines, 6 nines for every million transactions, right? 7 nines for every 10 million, 8 nines for every 100 million, 9 nines for every billion transactions, billion interactions, billion iterations. So what does that actually mean? It means that your business process flow diagrams that existed before in the past will now look like this underneath the covers. We have a security inbox triage agent. They use tools. They use reasoning. They're able to actually get the job done and adjust as your business requirements change. Give it a new tool, give it a new instructions, give it more context. So the most interesting thing that we've observed thus far and really predicting going forward is that the boundary between what should be automated and what needs human input is constantly shifting, right? I'm willing to now, everyone kind of cringes, but I'm willing to actually plan my travel through Claude, through ChatGPT. I just don't have the time or the cognitive cycles to do it anymore. So not only is the technology changing, our human psychology is changing. And Retool actually gives you the platform to help you with that change. And one example, I just mentioned Claude Sonnet 4.5, is that they recently changed how they approach their thinking and reasoning. Whereas before, you actually had to select a specific model, among other model providers as well, that would pin your level of reasoning, your level of chain of thought to actually get a job done. But now that's actually determined by the model itself based on the input and context that you provide. So you need a platform that can adjust to those new realities in real time, not like in a quarter, in several months, in real time, today, tomorrow, next week. So when you put all of this together, you stop thinking of them as separate tools. Human oversight, agents, and workflows. You start seeing them as building blocks of a single automation platform. So here's where this gets powerful. The future of automation isn't just smarter agents. It's the orchestration of those agents and workflows, and the structured human tasks on a single surface powered by Retool. Workflows give us the durable, deterministic execution. Agents give us adaptive, non-deterministic reasoning. And humans, they give us accountability and judgment. So you can kind of see I'm now phrasing this as digital coworkers. It's a concept that we're gonna have to get familiar with. It may seem a little like I don't really does not compute, but by the end of this decade, it will be common. Digital labor, digital coworkers, there'll be different labels for it, but it is a reality that's coming. So let's actually continue the narrative, right? So on the left-hand side now, we actually have a process that we need to create. So let's go back to Pam's scenario. Pam actually sells a lot of product for her company, right? Thousands of customer interactions. And now one customer, unfortunately, wants a refund. There's a bit of a dispute. Didn't see eye to eye on something. It happens, law of large numbers type stuff. Now, strangely enough, Pam's company, let's just for argument's sake say it's Dunder Mifflin, has never had to do a return before. They actually have no return or dispute resolution process. So Pam grabs Dwight, grabs Jim, even Michael. They go to a meeting room, and then after some colorful commentary, they come up with an SOP for our dispute process. Great. Now, typically, what would follow is that they would reach out to their IT team, maybe their in-house, maybe their contract. There would be lots of back and forth. There would be lots of committees. But that, unfortunately, does not scale. In this new world, what actually happens is that Pam goes to the customer success team. Let's say it's Stanley and Creed. And from there, they actually put this into Retool. They drop the SOP into Retool, and now Retool is actually able to parse out the diagram, the requirements, and create that dispute resolution process for the company, for the team. You can see the task plan, the core workflow blocks, the user tasks for the human layer, and then finally the execution decision branches. So on the right side, what you see here is all of the different agents that can come into play. There's this kind of orchestrator producer agent that we have at the top. There's a fraud workflow, there's an evidence agent, there's a risk agent. There's lots of agents available at this business's disposal to create this new process. And finally, we get our response and human review at the bottom. So let's actually go through this dispute resolution process kind of in real time. So we see a new case has actually been triggered. And now the dispute producer agent starts reaching out to all other available agents that it has. So first it goes to the evidence collector. It's going to all the different data sources that are available in the organization just to try and reconcile what's actually going on. Next it goes to the Zendesk agent through A2A to actually initiate a refund request and log it in Zendesk. Also reconcile some other information within Salesforce on account metrics, et cetera. Then finally sends it off to the customer success team to be approved through Slack. So now what we actually have is that customer success team was able to actually process this refund on behalf of Pam. She did not have to make a call to them. She didn't have to message them. She could just initiate the request, and then it can be completed by someone that has the delegated authority to accept it. For now, that authority is a human. In the future, it could be an agent. It could be both, just depending on what your thresholds are and what your risk tolerance is in your business. So now we went from making an individual more productive to a team, to a business. And that's what really matters. And it's all built in Retool's centralized agent platform. So before, sorry, went one slide ahead. So I want to kind of leave you with a comparison. You can tell I love TV shows, I love movies. So what this actually reminds me of, I don't know if anyone's ever watched The Big Short. Who here has watched The Big Short? Curious. Wow, actually like more than half the hands went up. So, okay, you'll get this. So do you remember that scene where Jared Vanett, played by Ryan Gosling, he's in the movie, he's like in the room selling to Michael Scott, Front Point Partners. He's selling credit default swaps on the housing market. Why? What is that? Well, he was betting that the housing market is going to go through massive volatility and change. Well, the same thing is happening with your business processes right now. They're going through massive volatility and change, right? And now what he was doing, he was selling fire insurance on that volatility and change that was already underway. So what is Retool? Retool is the credit default swaps against your business processes. It is the fire insurance. It's available today, right now. And now everyone around you, right? Everyone around you, whether it's your partners, whether it's your friends, they have no idea what's going on, especially if they're not in tech. Maybe this isn't a good sample size because we're all in the Bay Area. Really, everyone's circle of friends is somewhat adjacent or directly involved with tech. But there's a lot of people that really don't know what's going on. But you do, and you can actually take advantage of it today. So be that agent of change within your business, and you'll really help transform it and get it ready for the next decade. So with that, I do want to actually bring back Paco to the stage so he can actually close us out and get us ready for the next session.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tom. We are the last product session of the day. I think it's the best one. But I also feel like if we closed out product this year, agents is probably the keynote for next year. So you may see Tom and I next year doing the main one, hopefully. But this is so cool. And one thing, I want to take us back to where we started. We started with how do we bridge that 95% failure gap? And as I was backstage listening to Tom, I realized maybe next year, it's not going to be that 95% failure gap. It's going to be that 0% failure gap, optimistic, maybe 5%. And this is what we saw today is what is going to ensure the closing of that gap. So I'm so excited for the year to come. So two things. We talked about embracing the human-AI boundary. We talked about not eliminating it and building the tools that make that boundary visible and adjustable. And by recognizing that the future of AI isn't about perfect autonomy. It's about perfect collaboration between human judgment and machine capabilities. Humans don't disappear. They become first-class participants. And their role shifts to oversight, approvals, and judgment calls. All of this to make sure that the work that we make, the agents we create, are safe, compliant, and aligned with our business goals. So with that, we are going to close out. But we encourage all of you guys to take a quick break and come back because now the fun really begins with Patrick and David. And then Harry's coming back to do a show that is going to blow our minds. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, everyone.